Hey there, marvelous horror fans, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about the Smile prequel. Let's get into it. I'm a devout horror fan who has sat through countless horror classics, and in the process, I've also endured the forgettable jump scare fests. However, when it comes to unique and remarkable movies like Smile, I have to put it in the former category. You see, when the film first crept into theaters back in 2022, I had no expectations from it, and never in my wildest dreams did I see this becoming the phenomenon it became. It was originally destined for streaming, but word of mouth turned it into such a sleeper hit that it grossed over $216 million on a modest $17 million budget. I find this all the more inspiring because it shows that a genuinely good story still has a place in mainstream horror cinema. Smile 2 was a worthy sequel that built on the excellence of the original, and it became a global sensation, cementing the legacy of the franchise as something special. But I've often wondered about what really makes these films so compelling. If you ask me, I would go for the unsettling stretched smile that has given me quite a few nightmares, but the real terror came from the characters like Rose Cotter losing their mind after watching the creepy smile. This is a franchise that understands the value of psychological horror over cheap thrills, and I also love how the franchise has kept the mystery alive around the smile entity. Yes, it torments its victims through impossible hallucinations and drives them to suicide, but we still don't know where it came from or its true nature. Well, this is precisely what makes the prequel comic titled Smile for the Camera so special, and it answers a lot of the fan questions, even though we're only into the first issue. The story is set in 2005, and the events take place 17 years before the first film, if you're wondering about the timeline. The narrative drops us into a world where the entity was already hunting victims, and I have a feeling that this earlier timeline might finally reveal where the entity came from, and how it's been feasting on human suffering. So let me quickly get into the details of this intriguing comic series, because I know that the mysteries surrounding the Smile entity have kept you thinking as well. Before I even begin to dive into the story, I have to tell you about the haunting cover art that absolutely deserves to be the poster of a Smile movie. It's a chilling image of a young woman holding open scissors across her face, with blood dripping from her hands, and she has the same haunting smile that immediately dries up the jokes and makes you take the story seriously. The narrative opens with a flight landing in New York City. The landing announcements are underway as US Airways thanks the passengers and instructs them to remain seated until the seatbelt sign is turned off. As the passengers prepare to get off the plane, we see a young woman who seems slightly disturbed. Her co-passenger tries to hit on her with a compliment, but she doesn't even pay attention as her eyes drift outside and catch a glimpse of something that leaves her shocked. She watches a ground crew staring at her from outside, and he has the cursed smile on his face that makes her absolutely terrified. Then comes another shocker as the man seemingly jumps into the engine of the plane and gets chopped up into a million pieces of blood and flesh. It's a ghastly sight as his co-workers are all confused because the man was apparently screaming bloody murder before he sped off in a cart. The bloody mayhem cuts away to a relatively normal set piece, as we see a woman named Ivy walking with her luggage, as she mutters that there's no turning back now. She reaches a cramped apartment, where there are some other girls as well. One of them introduces herself as Noah, and another girl named Lena. Before Ivy can settle in, they're all told that Purple wants to see them downstairs, and they all walk down. Purple is this man in a white suit, and he admires the beautiful ladies, especially Ivy, even though Noah warns her that the man likes to keep them on a tight leash. I don't know what this is all about yet, but from the looks of it, till now, Purple seems to be in charge of a fashion magazine or a channel, and the girls are young models who probably work for him. He informs them about Spring Fashion Month and how it's going to be extremely busy, and he orders the girls to follow his orders to the T. Suddenly, the girl from earlier in the plane walks in. She apologizes for being late and offers an excuse about the incident of the man who jumped into the plane engine. But Purple isn't impressed, and his dissatisfaction also reveals that the girl's name is Cammy. Nevertheless, the meeting continues, and Purple talks about their busy schedules ahead, where they'll be caught up with shoots and shows with little time to sleep. It also becomes clear that the girls are all models, as Purple dangles them the carrot of supermodel status in return for all their hard work. As for Cammy, Purple has a word of warning, because he wants her to make it to a cover or it will be retirement time for her. Well, it turns out that Ivy is not a pushover, and she inquires about some of the clauses in the contract, such as the one that forbids the models from getting a haircut without permission. Purple is defiant about the clauses, even though Ivy wonders how the NDA is a legal bear trap, and the models can be sued for just about anything. Purple also wonders why a college student like Ivy, studying veterinary medicine, has so many law questions, and he doesn't take too kindly to the questions and makes it clear that signing the contract is mandatory and refusal will mean the door for Ivy. So finally, it's all clear to me. Purple runs a modeling agency, and he asks everyone to be present at the Fashion Week kickoff party that night. The next panel is all about the 4 girls getting ready, and they gel up through conversations about their lives. Noah, for instance, has been modeling all her life, and she started as a kid, while Ivy is really a newcomer with no prior modeling experience. As for Cammy, she's still pretty shaken up from what she'd witnessed earlier, but at least she seems in better shape. Noah comforts Ivy about her nervousness and points out how lucky she's been to live a life removed from the zoom lens. Finally, they all leave, and it's the horrible face of the society exposed as one of them gets verbally harassed. But just as they're all about to get into a cab, an old woman comes up to them and tells Cammy, "Tick-tock, ya old yeller." Well, this is not a good sign, and I know it already from my experience of the movies, but the girls are oblivious to this and they're just slightly confused. Nevertheless, they all walk away and reach the venue for the party, where Purple is busy socializing with the big shots of the modeling industry. The girls prepare for a night of formality and boredom, and they need a few drinks in their systems to get through it all. Ivy is quite awed by the grandeur of the party, even though Noah has seen it all and knows what to expect. This is the moment that also reveals why Ivy traded college for modeling. As it turns out, Purple promised her a lot of money if all goes well, and told her that a hair campaign alone could pay off her student loans, which were significant. There's a distinguished fashion star at the party named Lorenzo Pagani, and every girl at the party is smitten by his charm and influence. Since Ivy has no clue about him, she's informed that he's an it-girl maker, and this immediately rings a bell in my mind. Does he have something to do with the curse and the smile entity? We'll find out in due time, I guess. Meanwhile, Ivy meets another model named Alana Sue who's quite amused by her, and because she doesn't know who Lorenzo Pagani is and also doesn't smoke. On the other hand, the girls deal with a pervert who wants to enter the female washroom on the pretext of peeing, even though the men's room isn't even crowded. As for Alana, she's not a model but a writer for the Time Style section, and she admits that her editor only allows her to write fluff pieces like this one about the Fashion Week. But she also reveals that Purple's organization Surface is quite reputed, and known for discovering cover girls. This conversation gets interesting when Alana tells more about the perverted man from earlier, Perry Rickens, and talks about how it's a mystery why such men are so protected by the industry, and she doesn't have the luxury of writing about such real issues. In the meantime, Ivy's colleagues come to get her because Richie is apparently holding an after-party at his penthouse, and they're all supposed to head out there. The after-party is pretty grand, but someone tries to grope Cammy, and she just gives him a piece of her mind before storming off to the ladies' room for some drugs. Just as she does a line, she sees the old woman from earlier in front of her, and while Cammy's getting paranoid, the man who tried to grope her follows her into the ladies' room. He gets elbowed so hard by a startled Cammy that he gets left with a bleeding nose, and Cammy walks away. The next day is modeling time, and the girls are all prepared for some real work, even though Cammy talks about how she needed some hard drugs to cope with what she witnessed the previous day. A fashion designer walks in to take a look at the models, whom she regards as nothing more than a canvas for her art. Strangely enough, she then walks up to Cammy and says that the troubled model smells of death. This gets another turbulent reaction from Cammy, who shoves the designer, and she's clearly important enough because Cammy gets sent off from the set. When the girls get back home, Purple pays them a visit, and he has news for Ivy. Perry Rickens, the pervert from earlier, happens to be a famous fashion designer, and he apparently wants to have tea with her. Ivy is visibly worried from her experience with him, but Purple tells her that this is a huge opportunity, because a photo shoot with Perry means a lot of money. That night, Cammy seems really off, and one of the girls spots her standing by the window with a bloodied face. When confronted, she just runs away, and everyone who's watched the Smile movies knows that there's no escape for Cammy. The curse has got her caught too deeply. The meeting with Perry Rickens goes exactly how I assumed, but I surely wasn't prepared for what was coming next. Ivy heads to his apartment, and Perry starts to get all creepy with her. Unfortunately for him, Ivy's not one of those models who will be okay with anything to get the fame, and she pours hot water all over him and walks away. She's worried that Perry might call Purple and put in a bad word, but when she meets Purple, the latter happily informs her that the photographer wants to shoot with her in London, where they're all headed next. The other girls have a ramp walk that night, and it goes well enough to earn praise from Purple. Later, Ivy shares her experience with the girls, but nobody is surprised. Ivy just comes to the sad realization that models are disposable unless they become a cover girl or something, and nobody takes their complaints and concerns seriously. After the show, they're back in their room, where a horrifying sight awaits them. Cammy, who's been missing in action, is finally spotted, but not how they would have liked to see her. The girls find her lying dead in a pool of blood with a hook through her mouth and her eyes wide open. It's a terrifying sight, and I know what this means. The Smile entity will now need a new victim to latch onto. With that, the first issue ends, setting up the story just perfectly. I know this is too early to say anything about the comic series, but I couldn't have asked for a better first issue. There's something very disturbing about the combination of the horrors of the modeling industry and the Smile entity, and I can't wait to find out where the story is headed next. I have a feeling that Ivy will have a tough time, and she might just be the next victim in line. So far, there's been nothing conclusive about the origin of the Smile entity, but I'm sure that the upcoming issues will shed more light on the same, and when it does, I promise to bring it all to you just like I did with this one. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this promising comic series opener, and also share your thoughts on the next victim of the Smile entity among the models.